too. Hey, fantastic. I'm going to buy it. I'm going to finally get the answer to my question. So I immediately bought it and I went straight to, I think it was tape three, side one, perhaps. I don't remember exactly, but it was the tape that I figured that it would be on. And I forwarded immediately to the niggin. And here we go. The mimer ends and the niggin begins. And within 30 seconds, the niggin is gone. Those days, they didn't make a recording of the nigunim necessarily. Why should they? You know, it's a tape of the Rebbe talking. Well, who needs the singing? Of course, the singing was all part of the atmosphere of the Fabring. If you want to recapture the Fabring, you want to listen to the whole thing. If you want to forward through the niggin, you can do that, but at least have it. But those days, they didn't think that way, and they were saving tape, the tape. And so, to my great consternation and disappointment, it wasn't there. And I continued on with this doubt in my mind, not knowing exactly what it was. I couldn't even picture it. There was no precedent to this. There's no other time, and I felt it was like a part of me was missing. A part of the Rebbe's years was missing in my heart, not knowing exactly what that meant. About 10 years ago, somebody did me a tremendous favor. And he somehow got a hold of all the available DVDs, footage of the Rebbe, of Fabrengens and of different of the Rebbe. And he gave it to me as a gift. He gave me like a little basket, a little bag, a little like small little suitcase kind of thing, and a bunch of like maybe 30 or 40 DVDs. Whatever was available was in there with their, all of them were written on it. What's this Fabrengen? We know, when is this from? When is that from? And I came home from an event. It must have been about 12:30 at night, around about there. And I opened up this suitcase and I go through what was available there. And the first thing that caught my eye was Mashiach Sefer Torah, which happened on Tes Shvat, 1970, Tovshin Lamed. And that was like a piece of heaven, truly. And that we do have a tape of, and that you can listen to, and that, you know, was described in full detail in the transcripts there. And it was a thrill to have about 1 hour or so of footage of that Fabrengen. And the next thing I did was I took out the Yidalf Nissen Tavshin Lamed Beis in 1972, the Rebbe's 70th birthday, and that went straight into the machine. And of course, I forwarded it straight to the end of the mimer, and there it was, the entire niggin from beginning to end, all 28 minutes of it. And it is truly unbelievable. It's one of the most exciting moments of all the years of the Rebbe. What happens is they begin to sing it, and the Rebbe immediately begins to encourage the song. And as the song moves on, the Rebbe encourages it here or there, but it's mainly the Olam, the Hasidim, who are standing there, and every single person is involved. At some point, those who are sitting down in the front stand up. I mean, this is a moment. There were notorious non-singers at the Rebbe's Fabrengen. The Rebbe obviously wanted Nigunim. The Rebbe wanted the songs because that was part of the atmosphere of the Fabrengen. The Rebbe wanted the songs, as the Rebbe said, to take a break between one talk and another talk, although they come in context, they come in connection with one another. He wanted always to have a break, as the Torah says that there are parshas in the Torah. That's not one long paragraph. So Moshe Rabbeinu had the opportunity between parsha to review and to bring it down to his own, in his own mind. So the Rebbe had the same idea, that to stop between, as he would at a regular Fabrengen, to stop and make a separation between one sikha and another sikha. Here, even those people who never were really into the singing part of it, everybody was swept up. For example, the Rosh Hashiva of 770 was a beautiful chassid by the name of Rabbi Mentlik. Rabbi Mentlik came from Poland. He was in the times of the Frierdiker Rebbe, and then he came to the United States. He married a woman from the United States, and he became the Rosh Hashiva, and he became a lot of other things He was the one who poured the Rebbe the wine for Kiddush and for general for the Farbrengens. He was the Saramashkim, as the minister of drinks. And that means he poured for the Rebbe. And he was an amazing chassid, a chassid that stood by the Rebbe for the entire Kosher Bracha, let's say. Kosher Bracha could have gone on for 2, 3, 4, even 5 hours. And he was constantly refilling the Rebbe's cup. And at many times in Kosher Bracha, the Rebbe was encouraging the singing. At the end of Kosher Bracha, the Rebbe would be putting down his becher and with both hands and clapping. And it might have been this kind of moment. Rabbi Mentlik never moved. He stands like a soldier. He would never, allow it himself to get lost. He was so focused on this complete devotion and dedication to the Rebbe. It's like a personality that he had. He was an amazing example to all of us. Rabbi Mentlik, at this moment, in the half hour or so of the singing of B'char Hashem Chasisi, Rabbi Mentlik is looking around and he has got this smile on his face. You can see how much nachas and enjoyment he's. He couldn't help it. And all the people in the back, the older people who might have been sitting there, they're all clapping. The guys are dancing. The entire 770 is just jumping up and down. And they jumped up and down when the Rebbe encouraged. This was the dancing part of it. But they didn't stop when the Rebbe stopped encouraging. This went on and on, over and over and over again. And everyone, just everyone, is into it and is singing and is part of it. So I watched the entire thing, the whole 28 minutes or so of the footage. And then I rewound it and started watching it again. And at some point during the second time, I jumped out of my place and I got swept up in it. I found myself there. I simply found myself like as though I was there. Some people call me nuts. Some people call me fanatic. Possible, but that's what I felt. I was suddenly transposed. I was suddenly there, and it was like automatically. I was jumping up and down, and tears were streaming down my face because I suddenly realized what was going on. I believe I wasn't physically there, but I was there. I believe that every single individual who was in that shul, who was at that Farbrengen, was screaming 3 words: I love you. And later, when I asked my father and all the other people that I had asked over the years, when I presented this to them, and I said, would you accept that this is what was really happening? The olam over there, the people were just burst out. This ahava, this love to the Rebbe just came pouring out. Would you say that that was it? They said, absolutely. You got it. You nailed it. And I've spoken to a lot of people about this, and they all seem to concur that this was a moment where everybody who had come for Yud listen to celebrate the Rebbe's 70th birthday, like we don't go walk by the Rebbe and say, I love you. That's just not the way Hasidim and the Rebbe react. But it just poured out. And the Rebbe recognized that. The Rebbe said this is a Hisoidus Nikeres, a recognizable inspiration. And the Rebbe said, you love me? All right, boys, now we really can get to work. Until this point, there's a love between Hasidim and Rebbe, but now it's come out. It's come out. I'm going to push on you something that's almost impossible to imagine. You're going to be worried about it, but don't worry. It'll happen. The Rebbe turned over the entire world as a result of this love. He translated this I love you to an entirely new dimension. And it did. It really did. By the time Yud Aleph Nisan 1973 came, there were more than 71 institutions that had been established. Not all of them were buildings and new shlichus, but there was a library or a new shir that was devoted to a specific area, or these pamphlets, as I mentioned before, these booklets that came out. These were part of the institution of the new institutions that were going to come out in all different areas of outreach and of inreach, and it was unrecognized. Lubavitch became literally unrecognizable after that, all as a result of the Hasidim proclaiming to the Rebbe without saying the words, but having this atmosphere of, I love you. And that is incredibly unique to Lubavitch, to the Rebbe specifically. And I'll explain what I mean. Several years ago, when I was still living in Atlanta, today I live in outside of Atlanta, a place called Peachtree City. But when I was still living in Atlanta, Atlanta is one of the cities in the United States that hosts conventions. And the convention, the New York has a place, the Javits Center, Chicago has one, Las Vegas has one, and Atlanta has one. There's 4 or 5 of them around the United States. And over here in the Atlanta area, you have a convention of furniture, jewelry, things like that. And a lot of people come from all over the world, but especially from the United States, to participate in these usually have weekends. People display their latest wares or their latest ideas, and you go from place to place, as a convention would be, to learn from people, to sell to people, to make contacts. It's a big business. People come into town. And one year we had a furniture convention here, and a lot of people from Brooklyn, the Hasidim, they come into town. Usually, normally, they'll come in a few days before, and they'll leave by Friday, leave by Shabbos. Sometimes they need to stay over till Sunday, especially the people who are first starting out. And so I used to get all these type of these people with the Shreimels and from the different Hasidic sects. I asked that they should be sent to me if there's a request at the Chabad house. They should ask, come to bring it to me, and I'll take them in. These people, I feel, or I felt, needed a certain kind of attention, and to sing some zmiras, for them to feel at home. I felt it would be nice to talk to them in Yiddish, that kind of thing. And so one year I had a Ger Chassid, I've had Ger Chassid, one year I had a Belzer Chassid. And the Belzer Chassid is coming to me for Shabbos. And what I do is I open up those NCSY benches and have Zemiros in them. Go ahead. We don't sing these Zemiros, so I'll defer to you. Sing your song. I'll try and sing with you. If I know the song, if I don't know it, I'll hum with you. And that's how we started. I share a mimer, some sichos, all in a good way. We talk in Torah. And this guy was always responding that in Bells, we have a similar idea, similar thought. And somehow, somewhere towards the end of Shabbos, I asked him if he had seen the footage, the YouTube video, whatever it was those days. I'm going back about 15 years maybe. Have you seen footage of the Belzer Rebbe? He said, on the internet. He says, internet? I don't have any internet. I said, okay, we have internet. And after Abdullah, instead of taking you right back to your hotel, we'll spend a few minutes. We'll look at the internet. He was very excited. And I somehow found some clips of his Rebbe, the Rebbe from Belz. And the final clip was a longer clip, a 10-minute clip of Motzi Yom Kippur. And I don't know how the situation works over there, but there was a lot of food on the table. And there was a lot of people there. There was thousands of people. And the tables were laden with half. There's a long, long table, goes from one end of the room to the other, and at least half of it was covered with all kinds of foods, chicken, meat, and cake, challah, drinks, fruits. It was just like a very heavily laden table. And at some point, the whole clip is 10 minutes. And this thing must have taken maybe an hour and a half. At some point, the Belzer Rebbe comes in, he washes his hands, and he starts eating challah, and then they start distributing all the challah on the table. And then he eats fish, and they distribute the fish. Everybody has a little piece, a little bit. I imagine they must have broken their fast before. I really don't have any idea of how it works over there. But the end of this story was that at the end, finished benching, and the Belzer Rebbe stands up, and he starts to dance. He starts singing a lively tune, and then they dance up and back and forth like this. And he's dancing up back and forth like that. And everybody, the camera pans the crowd over there, and everybody is moving back and forth. And at some point, the Belzer Rebbe encourages the singing, and everybody is very excited. And it's nice. They sing nice songs. It's a nice clip. This guy, this Belzer Chosson, he's got a smile on his face from ear to ear. I mean, he's in Russian they say basmakovitz. He is having the time of his life. He's enjoying every second of it, and I felt very good. I really did. I felt very excited about that. You're doing something good for him. And when the clip ended, and that was the end of the show for the night, he turns to me and he says these words, two words in Yiddish: "Azah manhigus," such leadership. I said, "Well, wait a minute, leadership?" I said to him, "What do you mean?" He says, "Look at all the people over here." I said, "People?" I said, "I believe that Ger has bigger crowds." Ger, he goes like this, Ger. The Ger Hasidim, the Ger Rebbe doesn't even say any words of Torah, doesn't share words of Torah. I said, how is it in Bells? So he says, oh, in Bells, the Belzer Rebbe says Torah all the time, and he works hard at it. I said, how do you know he works hard? He said, because he said so. He says he works hard. So I said, okay, so what did he say last Shabbos? Last Friday night, last Shabbos, Shabbos Rudas, whatever. He says, I don't know. I said, okay, Pashas Kiseitze. What did he say last year, Pashas Kiseitze? I don't know. I said, could you share with me one word of Torah, just one, that the Belzer Rebbe said over the last 30 years of him being a Rebbe, the 8 years of him being a Rebbe? He says, no, he can't. So I said, what do you mean by leadership? How are you looking at your Belzer Rebbe and watching the place eat and then dance with great fervor and excitement, and you're calling that leadership? Why is that leadership? Leadership doesn't mean that you could eat and dance. Leadership means that you can share words of Torah and conquer the world. That's leadership. A Yid's leadership is Torah. And this is not to diminish anything, not to disrespect Bells and their good work and the things that they do, or I'm not sure what they do, and I don't know what quite, but they have their place and they have their things that they do, and there's a big amount of Hasidim over there, and it's a lot of people, and a lot of people are obviously inspired by it and a part of it, and et cetera, et cetera. It's a branch of Hasidism, and I'm not trying to take anything away from it, but when a Chassid looks at leadership quality, the leadership of a Chassid to a Rebbe is the Torah that he learned. My grandfather, Reb Zalman Jaffe, had a very unique and close and interesting relationship with the Rebbe. My grandfather did not have a beard until 1990, and he was given tremendous attention, special kind of attention by the Rebbe. And whenever he came, he decided that he was coming to the Rebbe for Shavuos. My birthday is around Shavuos time, and he came for my birth. And he felt that Shavuos was a full package, except that it wasn't too much work. Pesach, he can't go away. And Sukkot is too much of a hassle. But Shavuos is a plain Yom Tov. It's a Yom Tov. And the Rebbe would fabring and give kosher bracha, and it would be a proper Yom Tov, and it'd be Shabbosim before and after, and duchening, the whole situation. So he came every year for Shavuos. But he didn't just come for the Yom Tov. He came usually for the Shabbos before. He stayed for the Shabbos after, maybe even 3 Shabbosim. He stayed for a while, my grandfather, in New York. And he would ask the Rebbe for a farbrengen. He was there for Shabbos. He asked for, he wants a farbrengen. One year, the Rebbe said to him, farbrengen? You think a farbrengen is automatic? It takes a lot of preparation. So my grandfather said to the Rebbe, I tell you what, usually you speak for about a half hour, and we sing for about 5 minutes. In this way, why don't you speak for 5 minutes and we'll sing for a half hour? The Rebbe says 5 minutes also takes time. Anyway, that Shabbos, the Rebbe farbreng for hours with a long Rashi. Another time, the Rebbe said, I don't see any reason to have a farbreng in this Shabbos. Like there has to be some kind of a special reason. So my grandfather said, what do you mean? I'm here. I came. There's guests over here. And when a guest comes, he wants to hear from the Rebbe Torah. Not just to remember what you used to hear. And not just, what's the point of having a Shabbos in the Rebbe if there's no Torah? And the Rebbe said, I have to accept that argument. And basically, Rebbe farbrenged almost every single Shabbos that he was there. And my grandfather demanded this from the Rebbe, because without Torah, what kind of leadership do we have? If you think about it, it's the Rebbe's Torah that took over the world. These 71 new institutions, some of them were officially involved with the Rebbe's Torah, as those booklets were. Others were like Chabad houses or libraries, places like that. But those require the Rebbe's Torah in order to reach out to whoever. A chassid has to walk around with knowledge of the Rebbe's Torah in order to be a chassid. And the fact that Lubavitch has been turning over the world, is the winning team, the leading team of outreach and of all the other things, is only because we have with us the winning attitude of Torah from the Rebbe, which has no end to it. So, to translate this back into what we were saying before, when the Hasidim gathered together for the Rebbe's 70th birthday, and it suddenly burst out, this love to the Rebbe said immediately that this love is not simply a love because you love me. It is a love that has to be translated into turning over the world. And the turning over the world came obviously with the Rebbe's way, with the Rebbe's look, with the Rebbe's innovative and creative manner in Torah, which means that every chassid or everyone who is connected to the Rebbe must take along something of the Rebbe whenever he or she walks out into the street. I shared this story when I was in South Africa several years ago, that when we came to South Africa, 1984, as I mentioned previously, it was early January. Hardly anybody was in town for the summer vacation. And the school was only opening at the end of January. So 3 or 4 weeks later, one of our missions was, when we were settled at Torah Academy, was to be there with the high school kids. Those days, the high school kids was Kiwi Bernard and Jeffrey Berkowitz and the Bacha boys and Ari Shishler. These were the kids who were in the high school at that time. Herman's. And one of our goals, one of our missions was to befriend these boys and to be connected with them and to learn with them. And in order to sort of break the ice, it was decided that on the Sunday before the school was opening, the end of January, early February, we're going to have a soccer match out there on the fields at Torah Academy. And so it was Sunday morning, Pashas Mishpatim, and I had opened up some kind of booklet or some kind of book or something. I know it wasn't Likutei Sichos, but one of the books that had in it the Rebbe's letters, and the Rebbe's letters that were divided into parshas. I think it was some kind of Israeli book or something, because the Likutei Sichos has letters from the Rebbe in the back, but this letter doesn't appear in Likutei Sichos. It appears in Igros Kodesh, but it doesn't appear in Likutei Sichos. Anyway, it was Parshas Mishpatim, so I opened up the Parshas Mishpatim while I was holding up my tefillin. And over there it said that there's a pasuk that says that Hashem is going to bring Am Yisrael to Eretz Yisrael, but loy b'shana echos, not in one time, in 1 year, because it'll be a lot of animals will run around. When you defeat the enemy and you don't settle the land, they'll be overgrown and the animals will run around. And so ma'at ma'at agarashana mipanecha. Little by little, I'll push away the enemy from before you. So the Rebbe said that in this letter, just a couple of lines, maybe 2-3 lines, that the lesson from this is that when a person wants to conquer his own Eretz Yisrael, you've got to go slow and with a seder v'hadroga. There has to be some kind of an order and some kind of a system, not just simply I'm gonna jump into the deep end. I'm gonna chalav Yisrael, pas Yisrael, and I'm just gonna be the hat and jacket and the gartel. Take it easy, grow into it rather than jump into it. This is how to conquer your own Eretz Yisrael. That was the short part, and I went out after folding up my tefillin. I went outside to the soccer field. Later, I realized somebody came running over to me, who I later found out was Oliver Shalom, was Uzvolk, the old man Uzvolk. He was from Israel. And he says, quick, are you one of the shluchim from the Rebbe? I said, yes. From the Bachrim, yes. He says, quick, I need a Dvar Torah from the Rebbe for this week, for this parsha. I said, no problem. Ma'at ma'at agarshena min haaretz. Here's the whole story. This is the lesson. He says, wow, I'm running into a meeting now of the school. He had some kind of a position in the school. And this is exactly the theme that I'm trying to say. Wow, there's a Dvar Torah from the Rebbe, beautiful. And he runs off. I turn around and I go, phew. Imagine if I if I wouldn't have read that book when I was wrapping up my tefillin. Imagine what would have I said to the guy? I didn't go to school this week. My teacher didn't give me a Dvar Torah from the Rebbe. Like, how could a chassid walk outside? I made a resolution. I made a hachlota right there on the soccer field that every Motzei Shabbos I'm going to learn 3 sichos from the Rebbe, and in a way that I could actually give them over. I can share the Dvar Torah in them, so that I should never be caught without something from the Rebbe. In today's day and age, we have it in English. It's on the internet. It's on your fingertips, on your phone. Anything in any language, in any format, long, short, blurbs, blurbs, and longer pieces, shorter pieces, like everything. It's available. In 5 minutes, you can learn something quick and have it with you. That's a chassid of the Rebbe, who loves the Rebbe, who wants to turn over the world. You got to take the Rebbe's Torah with you. And in that vein, I'd like to mention 2 things. First of all, the daily Rambam was established on Achron Shel Pesach, 1984, while we were in South Africa. There's a whole story with that as well. But just to suffice it to say that when the Rebbe started the daily Rambam, the Rebbe said that there are three pathways. One of them is to study 3 chapters a day, to finish it in about a year. The second one is to study 1 chapter a day, to finish it in about 3 years. And the third one is to learn a small section of the mitzvahs that the Rambam wrote, to make just not the elaboration on it, but just basically what is the mitzvah. And the Rebbe began to talk about the Rambam at every single opportunity. A rally for children, Rambam. Sicha for the women, Rambam. Every Farbrengen, Rambam. Every Yechidus, Rambam, whenever possible. So much so that on Erev Yom Kippur, 1986, the year that we came back from South Africa, it was 1985, Tafshin Mem Vov, the Rebbe said in the bracha of Erev Yom Kippur to the Klal Yisrael that he wants to talk about something that pertains to that day, and he has a choice between the Chumash and the Rambam. And he says that since it's Kav Shaloi, in other words, it's his own idea, it has a certain preciousness to him. And therefore, he's going to talk about the Rambam. It's unbelievable, that line. That this is the Rebbe's baby kind of thing. And he spoke about this, the Rambam, more than any other campaign. The Rebbe really, really, really was pushing it and wanted this to happen. 3 parakim of Rambam every day for people who want to be connected to the Rebbe. The Rebbe said this is the main thing. If you don't have time for the Rebbe, well, then you have the one chapter. I think that every chassid should find some time. You get it in English today. You have it spoken to you, taught to you on the internet. It's amazing that we can have it. Well, I don't have any time. You stop at a red light. You have you can turn on the shir, learn 2 or 3 halachas. Next red light, learn another 1 or 2. By the time you're where you need to go, you'll get 1 chapter done. On the way home, you can do the same thing. And then all you need to do is 1 more chapter. It's doable if one really wants to do it. The Rebbe loves us and asked us to be united with one another so we can all learn the same thing and to have the entire Torah in our minds. Amazing. Here we go, the Rambam. That's one area. And another area is that there has been lately has been a very big campaign about everybody studying the same Sikh of the Rebbe for the 70 years of leadership. Right now they're learning Chelik Yud Gimel, Yud Beis. Yud Beis is volume 12 of Likutei Sichos is in Hebrew. And the Sichos, some of them are short, some of them are long, some of them are complicated, some of them are simple. But there are shiurim on WhatsApp and on the website. Every single Sikha is now covered with all shiurim on all different levels, advanced, beginners, and middle. It's amazing. All we need to do is just switch it on and turn and listen. If it's hard to learn it from the source, you can learn it from somebody who's teaching it. That's loving the Rebbe as the Rebbe translated. To turn over the world, to have something in ourselves. Torah, the entire Torah, which is the Rambam and the Rebbe's campaign, and the Rebbe's Sichos, which are that which did turn over the world, is turning over the world. To know the Rebbe's Sichos is to know the Rebbe's way of learning, but even more, to know the Rebbe's Sichos, you probably become familiar with about half of the Torah, the Rishonim and Achronim, because the Rebbe's Sichos, everything is packed in them, everything. Hasidus, Kabbalah, Nigla, Halacha, everything, a minhag, the entire world is in there. You become literally well versed in Torah if you did those 2 things. So, to finalize, to summarize, we all love the Rebbe. The Rebbe's 70th birthday came out, it burst out, but everybody has a love for the Rebbe, as we should. The Rebbe has taken care of us, especially South Africa. It had a special place in the Rebbe's heart. And because of that love and the investment that the Rebbe invested and invests in us, it would be very good for us to return the favor and invest in the Rebbe's Torah and in the Rebbe's campaign of Rambam. And in this way, we can really express our love to the Rebbe, because that's what the Rebbe would really want from us. To love him means to do something. And to do something everybody can do every day is to learn the Rambam and to learn a Sikha. Throughout the week, the system is just 2 Sikhas a week. You don't have to listen to the entire thing. You can just listen to part of it every day. This way, you've got the Rebbe's Torah in your pocket. And when Uzbok wants to stop you on the soccer field, or whoever it might be, we don't have to say, I don't remember. But we say, we walk around with the Rebbe's Torah because we love the Rebbe. Thank you.
Shakach, Rabbi Lou, thank you very, very much for the zechronos, for the memories, and probably most importantly for the inspiration and motivation for going forward to retaining and strengthening our connection. Shakach, a good moed and a feilich yom tov to you and the whole family.
Amen. Migam atem, everybody, a freiliche yom tov and a freiliche yor. It's a year that needs a lot of simcha to break through all of these restrictions. The one restriction for me is that I was able to be in South Africa without physically being there. Mitzvah Hashem, next time we'll come to Fabring a ganze Nacht and a ganze Tag and a ganze Yontif. The Yom Shekuli Toiv. And the biggest simcha will be when we have the Isgalus of Mashiach Tzidkenu taken from Yad Mamish. A good Yontif
Right.
and a good Yor.
Yom Tov. Kol Tov.